Hello class, my name is Nicholas Pender and today's presentation will provide a breakdown of Pender Freight's pack oil acquisition and freight line expansion into Micronesia. In today's agenda, we're going to start off with the proposal for Pender Freight's expansion. Then we'll highlight the benefits as to why Pender Freight should even consider these expansion options. Next, we'll review a SWOT analysis of the proposed expansion, highlighting the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Immediately following this will be a complete breakdown of anticipated political, economic, and environmental risks. After that, we'll assess ways to mitigate these risk factors. This will allow us to develop a tentative marketing strategy. Finally, I'll provide a summary of what we've covered, and there will be an opportunity for questions at the end. Pender Freight is looking to acquire Pac Oil, a U.S. oil exploration company conducting operations in the shallow waters off of the South China Sea, just off the western coast of the Philippine island of Luzon. The company possesses several tankers, oil drilling equipment, and facilities necessary to conduct oil exploration, extraction, and processing. Pender Freight also wishes to expand operations to the Federated States of Micronesia and its numerous outlying islands. Much of this part of the world is disconnected from mainstream trade, and this company aims to bolster Micronesia's economy by providing diverse, creative solutions to the logistical challenge of supplying hundreds of populated islands across 2,700 square miles of ocean. On the same token, Pender Freight would be tapping into a market virtually untouched. Pender Freight would benefit in a number of ways from this expansion. First and foremost, the ability to seek out, extract, and refine our own oil will be an invaluable capability. It will enable us to supply our freight ships with our own oil and no longer depend on outside sources. We are anticipating an 80% reduction in fuel costs with this acquisition. Not only that, oil revenues present a completely new form of revenue, reducing our dependency solely on the shipping industry. As for expanding shipping operations to the Federated States of Micronesia, the benefits are clear. Micronesia is an untapped market. This means little competition. Also, the Federated States of Micronesia is backed by U.S. financial aid. In fact, they receive $130 million annually from the U.S. government, which lasts until 2023. This means despite the Federated States of Micronesia's poor economy, funds will be available to compensate our services. While initial revenues appear minimal, we'll anticipate a 70% increase in trade from the region in the next 3 years as the economic situation improves. A SWOT analysis is useful due to its ability to highlight internal and external factors contributing to the success or failure of a proposed plan. First up in a SWOT analysis of the Pac Oil acquisition. In our strong suits, we've identified the close working relationship we have with the Philippine government. We're also very familiar with operating in this geographic region, and the strong U.S. military presence in the region would ensure the safety of our operations. However, we have internal issues with this acquisition dealing with technical know-how and lack of experience with managing an oil enterprise. We have the option to retain the current Pac Oil workforce, which would certainly help. We also have the support of the U.S. trade representative in the event we hit a political roadblock with foreign nations. Threats to this expansion include foreign encroachment from China, Vietnam, Malaysia, Taiwan, and Brunei. This region is also heavily pirated by Islamic extremists from the nearby Palawan and Mindanao Islands. Unstable weather patterns also pose a threat as typhoons are possible year-round. We would also be particularly vulnerable to seismic events such as earthquakes and tsunamis. SWOT analysis of our Micronesia initiative presents some unique findings. The backbone of this operation will be out of Apra Harbor on Guam. We have 6 vessels ready to begin trade, and a large number of our workforce is comprised of Micronesian expatriates. However, With our current technology, we can only service 4 of the 607 inhabited islands. Additionally, these islands are spread out across 2,700 square miles of ocean. To counter this problem, we have container vessels outfitted with helipads in development at our headquarters in Long Beach, California. The idea is to approach inaccessible islands and fly in containers from the container vessel by means of freight helicopters. Fortunately, the primary language of these islands is English. However, there are 8 sub-languages that we have to contend with. The Micronesian workforce is 2/3 employed by the government, which should hopefully boost consumerism. However, many of the islands still hold a tribal culture, based off of a caste system of nobles and commoners. This is further hampered by a subsistence economy that relies solely on traditional fishing and farming methods. All of this underscores the fact that Micronesia is among the 45 poorest nations in the world. The Spratly Islands dispute has a significant impact on the future of oil exploration in the South China Sea. China is the primary aggressor in the massive land grab. The background of the current dispute is complex, but basically it rides on China's belief that in ancient times they had sovereign control of the vast swath of islands. Only recently has China decided to exercise its right over this territory due to the fact that oil has been discovered in these shallow waters. In this map, you can see the area I'm talking about. In 1892, the UN established the 200-mile nautical exclusive economic zone under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. However, China's claim is clearly contrary to this, which is outlined in red. You can also see areas circled in gray on the map. These represent the locations of oil fields. Where the oil fields overlap between red outlines China and yellow outlines the Philippines, this is where Pac Oil currently operates. It's an extremely volatile situation which we must play by ear as the situation evolves. The Micronesian expansion is not near as politically risky. While there may be some haggling to be done with tribal leaders on smaller outlying islands, the Micronesian government enjoys a closer relationship with the United States due to the Compact of Free Association, which they both signed in 1986. Economic risks in the Philippines is synonymous with corruption. Unfortunately, corruption is very prevalent at all levels of government in the Philippines. A recent report from the Business Anti-Corruption Portal highlighted a case where a Philippine customs official was charging facilitation fees to Conway, another freight company out of California. Conway was caught off guard and forced to pay a $300,000 fine to the Philippines. Situations like this are to be expected, and vigilance is key to overcoming this obstacle. Additionally, Pac Oil will cost $150 million to acquire. As for Micronesia, they're among the 45 poorest nations in the world. Some islands still use stone currency, and the nation only has a population of 105,681 people. Micronesia must develop into a consumer economy if Pender Freight is to stand any chance at remaining profitable. Finally, expansion into Micronesia will mean a substantial increase in fuel costs to Pender Freight at 10% annually. Regarding environmental risks, the Pacific can be an unforgiving place. For Pac Oil, operating in the South China Sea involves dealing with pirates, Islamic extremists from Mindanao, typhoons, earthquakes, and tsunamis. Operating in Micronesia would also involve dealing with typhoons, earthquakes, and tsunamis. However, it will also mean operating in a vast area of 2,700 square miles and 607 inhabited islands. This map gives you an idea of the distance we're dealing with. Back to the topic of natural calamities, the Philippines and Micronesia were recently impacted by powerful typhoons. In November 2013, Super Typhoon Haiyan impacted Tacloban, an island in the Visayas region of the Philippines. It was also the most powerful typhoon on record. In March 2015, Super Typhoon Maisak impacted the Micronesian island of Ulithi. This part of the world never really sees an end to these kinds of storms. Therefore, large industries like Pender Freight must adapt to these conditions. Mitigating these risks will be essential to Pender Freight's success in the region. Fortunately, we've been operating in this part of the world for the past 30 years, and we know how to handle a typhoon or two. The evacuation procedures are already established, and adjusting them to Pac Oil's operations would only take a little tweaking. However, typhoons are relatively slow-moving and easier to react to. Pirates, Islamic extremists, earthquakes, and tsunamis all come without warning. While the U.S. Navy publishes weekly reports on pirate and Islamic extremist activity in the region, there's little anticipating where exactly they will strike. The same goes for earthquakes and tsunamis. Operating in the West Pacific will always involve a certain amount of acceptable risk. As for economic risks, we're primarily concerned with addressing Micronesia's stagnant economy. We've projected a 3-year, 70% increase in trade because it will take time for a nation to completely realign itself to a consumerist mentality. To help Micronesia along, we're dedicating 6 container vessels to the region, which will go back and forth from Guam on a weekly basis. We say weekly because to maintain profitability in the short term, Pender Freight will need to utilize a slow steaming method technique to burn the least amount of fuel possible. Unfortunately, this will mean more than double the shipping time, from 3 days to 7 days. However, the large volume of ships will ensure a steady flow of goods. And for political risks, we'll have to play the Spratly Island situation by ear. If the tables turn and China comes out on top, we may have to consider cooperation with China. This will require an entirely new risk assessment. Finally, Pender Freight's marketing strategy will basically be a summation of everything we've covered, angled at filling in the 4 P's of marketing. That's price, product, place, and promotion. For price, it's going to cost us $150 million to acquire Pac Oil, and we'll be spending 10% more on fuel to expand freight shipping to Micronesia. However, the 80% reduction in fuel costs, thanks to the acquisition of Pac Oil, should counter the additional fuel costs in Micronesia. Our product would be oil, its exploration and production, and freight shipping services. The region we'd be operating in is the South China Sea and the Micronesian Islands. For promotion, our company is already relatively friendly with the Philippine government thanks to our existing freight services with them. For Micronesia, we employ a number of their expats already, and we can take advantage of the close ties Micronesia has with the U.S. thanks to the Compact of Free Association. And one final note about Pender Freight as a whole. With the diversification of our product offerings, as well as the alignment of resources to self-sustain Pender Freight, I believe it's in our best interest to realign the governance of our company into the conglomeration of Pender Group. Pender Freight would still exist as a subordinate entity, with the addition of Pender Oil. In summary, I started off with the proposal for Pender Freight's expansion. Then I highlighted the benefits as to why Pender Freight should consider these expansion options. After that, I provided a review of the SWOT analysis of the proposed expansions, highlighting the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Following that, I identified anticipated political, economic, and environmental risks. This set the foreground for an assessment of risk mitigation efforts. Finally, I provided a tentative marketing strategy along with a proposal for Pender Freight to evolve into the Pender Group, with sub-entities Pender Freight and Pender Oil. There's a lot riding on this expansion. With all the risks identified in this presentation, it's essential that Pender Freight proceed with caution into the South China Sea and Micronesian Islands. If you have any questions, you may present them now.